Okay, at this point, I have the slides, okay? So all that information we just went over, there's no way I would expect you ever to remember that. So we have it written down in slides, and Ashlyn's just gonna come around and hand those out. So now you'll be able to see the 5 areas, the 17 grounds. When we have them interact, we have a crime against the code, okay?
Let's get back to this indictable offense. What would be an example? Okay, so if I'm assuming it's like murder or something like that.
Yes. Yeah, more so. Well, so
if I
some,
murdered somebody and I
just to go a little bit into criminal matter or criminal law, and I am by no means I don't practice criminal law, but I remember it from school, okay? So we have, there's certain offenses that are strictly summary convictions, some that are strictly indictable, and some that are hybrid. And the courts have to choose, based on the seriousness of what happened, which way they're going to go. So if the more serious offenses are the indictable offenses, yes. So yes, murder, things like that.
well, once I did my time, if I came out, could they discriminate against me?
Yes. Yes, because you have not yet received a pardon. And a pardon is actually, the legal term for it is a record suspension. And that's where you're actually, you're closing that file, you're taking it off of your criminal record. So you have to pay a fee, you have to do an application, you have to apply to what used to be known as the parole board, make an application about how this is going to change your life if you were no longer discriminated against for this matter, because this is going to affect your children, your housing, your work. It's very serious. Yes?
What would a summary conviction, what are they?
Summary conviction offenses? Things like... I know off the top of my head.
Something you'd actually do jail time for, right?
Yes, but I don't want to give a definitive answer that if you do jail time, it's an indictable offense. That's what I'm saying, because I don't specialize in criminal law, so I don't want to make that clear distinction, because I definitely don't practice criminal law.
So it falls under summary?
Summary, the lighter offenses. So theft under 5,000. That's parking tickets and traffic matters. That's a provincial offense. So that's covered under, you're not allowed to be discriminated against for those things, because those are not even criminal. Those are covered under the Provincial Offence Act. So we're getting a little bit into a gray area. Again, I don't practice criminal law, so I don't want to make any distinctions. I was not expecting to go here with that, but if you'd like more information though, I have a slide for that. We'll see. Okay. So just once again to reiterate, we've gone over a lot of information, and if there's one thing I'd like you to take away from this and to remember, it's this: the Ontario Human Rights Code trumps the other legislation. You need to know this exists, because if you're in a situation where you feel you've been wronged and they come back to you and they say, well, no, I'm following the law, here it is, I'm giving you the bare minimum of what the law says, even if they're in accordance with that law, if they're still breaching the code, you still have a claim for damages, okay? All right, so we have a system, yes, that's okay.
Sorry to keep getting back to
That's
the
okay.
Leaser thing, but if you're over 65, does this not count?
It does to a certain degree, but once you reach the age of 65, it's like you're allowed to receive discounts and specials and things. So it's actually better for you once you reach 65, because then you're allowed to be receive specials and discounts. Yeah. Okay. So the next slide here, and I've got a slide coming up that I think will answer a lot of questions. This is a system we've set up in Ontario for handling these matters. The first step is with the Ontario Human Rights Commission, and this is the one I wanted to point out because they have a vast website. They are dedicated to educating the general public. So if there's anything from this talk today that you'd like to look into or know a little bit more about or clarify, their website is where you would go to learn about that. The next step is the Human Rights Legal Support Center. They're a free legal advocacy group. However, from my experience, it If you call them up with a claim, you may get a varying degree of assistance. So sometimes you might get to speak with a legal representative for about a half an hour. Sometimes they might tell you what forms to fill out. And if it's a really serious matter, they may go to court with you, to the tribunal, but it would have to be very serious. So in my experience, I would recommend you give them a call first, but if they're not really willing to give you a lot of help and you're still looking for other help, then to seek out a paralegal or a lawyer to help you with the matter. And then of course the last step is the tribunal itself, and they're the ones that make all the decisions and make all the orders. That's where your applications are heard. Okay, so next one. So this is just a clip of their website, because you can go there and there's just a world of information. It's ridiculous. So if you want to go there and you want to look up the age grounds, it'll have so much information for you. Way more than I can remember. So that's where we can go to get that information. All right. And this is what we really want to talk about, right? Because so what? We've been wronged. But do we have damages? Are we able to recover? What is this tribunal actually going to do for us if we've been wronged, right? So there's 3 types of remedies. There is financial compensation, non-financial remedies, and measures to address the broader public interest. So next one. Okay, under financial remedies, that's the money, that's the one we all really care about, right? We have general damages, which are damages to compensate you for injury to your dignity, feelings, and self-respect as a result of the discrimination. And again, this is one of those very special tribunals that actually cares about your hurt feelings, and that's because their whole mandate is to protect the inherent dignity of every person. Special damages is money that you've had to spend as a result of the discrimination. So it's intended to put you back in the financial position you would have been had the discrimination not occurred. Okay, next one. Non-financial remedies can include things like reinstatement to your job, if that's what you so desire. A promotion, if you were turned down for a promotion because of one of these reasons, they can order that, no, you do deserve that promotion. An offer of employment, but one of the more common ones is a letter of reference. Because if you've been fired for a reason that's covered under the code, and it's a breach of the code, most times you don't want to go back to that employer because there's a certain amount of bad blood, right? So, but going forward, when you're trying to find the next job, how do you explain, well, I had to take my last employer to the Human Rights Tribunal? That's going to be a little bit awkward, right? So they can order that a letter of reference be given, so you make that transition easier. Okay, just a couple more slides here and we'll be all finished. Next one. Okay, so orders in the interest of public interest remedies. So the tribunal can order, let's say it's a company that that discriminated against you for protected grounds. It can order that they change their hiring practices, that they develop non-discriminatory policies and procedures, make a donation to charity, something like that. Something to kind of safeguard this from happening again. Okay. All right. The last slide here. Of course, it says, I don't think discrimination against lazy people is a valid claim. Okay, so this one takes a little bit of explaining because, and we're just going to assume, for the sake of argument, that this gentleman in the picture does not have alcoholism. He's not suffering from depression or any kind of mental health issue, and he's just lazy. That's not a protected grounds. Right? Now that we've identified that there's 17 protected grounds, we've also identified that anything else, they can discriminate and it's perfectly legal. So if you come into work one day and you dye your hair green and they don't like the color green, okay, that's not your natural hair color, you were brown yesterday, today you're green, they really don't like green, they can fire you, give you notice, pay in lieu of notice, you're gone, that's perfectly legal. Yeah. Let's see. So, yeah, so we've identified that everything else is legal. There are also 2 other exceptions that I would like to mention very briefly because we're almost finished. In employment law, there is something called a bona fide occupational qualification. If the employer can prove that the reason for discrimination is directly linked to the job requirement, and it's been a requirement that's been made in good faith, then it's perfectly legal for them to discriminate on that basis. An example of this would be a health club. If they have a requirement that the staff in the men's locker room only be men, that's usually a requirement that's been made in good faith. There's, a legitimate reason for it. So they would be allowed to discriminate on that as long as they can prove it's a bona fide occupational qualification. And then in terms of disability, of course your employer has the duty to accommodate a disability, but what if they can't afford it, right? They only have the duty to accommodate to the point of undue hardship. So if you're working for a private, small, family-run company, you're in a car accident and you're in a wheelchair. Of course, if they can afford to make the building wheelchair accessible, then that's what they're going to need to do. But if this is a small family-run business, they really can't afford it, it would put them out of business to do that, then it is not illegal for them to let you go for those reasons. Yes. So, disability, accommodation, only until the point of undue hardship. So the color of your hair, if not natural, constant lates, and work performance. If it's not medically related, depression counts. If the person doesn't like the logo of the sports team on your baseball cap, they can discriminate. But if you can prove that it's one of the 17 protected grounds, you have remedies available to you. And I want to thank you. Yes. See, that's where my job comes in, right? Because you're going to come to me and you're going to say this and this and this happened. I think it's because of my age. And the employer is going to say, no, it's because of this area, which is an unprotected grounds. And then it's my job to prove on a balance of probabilities, it's more probably because of his age, which is a protected ground. Right, exactly. Yes, exactly, yes.
I do have a serious question.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Is there a statute of limitations?
Yes, there is.
Is there?
Yes, there is. I believe it's majority of the time it's 2 years to bring forward a claim, but that is always 2 years from the time that you realize a claim can be brought forward. So if you're just coming to this event now and you're just finding out now something that happened 3 years ago, I can put in a really good argument that they should still hear the matter. Yes. Okay, so again, I want to thank everyone for coming out tonight. That was a lot of information I threw your way. And if we have any questions, any broad questions, I'd be happy to answer them. If it's something that I don't know off the top of my head, we can email and I'll look into it. But other than that, thank you all so much for coming.